Before we get into anything, let me just catch everybody up to speed here
Yeah.
on what we're doing. Let's see here. Quick. Wait.
Ooh, it's a dime.
All right, I definitely have some stuff I want to pick your brain about tonight.
Dope.
Just because I feel like you've had more experience with this current set than I have, so I kind of want to get your opinion on a couple of things that I feel. Also want to get some stuff talked about in regards to like quality of life improvements and when it comes to the game itself.
Definitely.
So, definitely going to touch on that. And then diversity, of course, is definitely something I want to touch on as well. So,
Perfect.
I've got a couple of things I'd like to talk about. Let's see here. This one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Alright, so, alrighty, let's get it started. What is up, Squared Nation? Welcome back to the live edition of the Four Corners podcast, the official podcast of No Counters, No Combos. I'm here with my brother from another mother, Matt Manning. What's up, my boy? How you been?
What up? Living. I'm almost ready to roll with the weekend. It's halfway through, so I'm ready to get started with the podcast. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I've got a lot of things I'd like to talk about. Just some quality of life stuff. I want to talk about, where we see this game going in the near future, not too far future. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but I kind of want to just pick your brain a little bit and see like where we're at with a couple of things. So I'm just gonna get started with that right away. I feel like, well, personally, I haven't had a lot of time with Ultimate Squad. I haven't played in the meta. I haven't played really a lot of the decks from the set. But I know you've been testing it for a while. I know you've had a lot of experience. So on surface value, what I'm seeing is I feel like Ultimate Squad is one of those sets that is kind of a peek behind the curtain at what Bandai is planning for the future. It seems like it's a really good set out of the box to build decks with. It seems like a lot of the decks, a lot of the archetypes are specifically focused on Ultimate Squad cards themselves. It doesn't really look like you're pulling from too many older sets, which is good. It's more of like a living card game model, but I think that's good for the last set in a block to do that. So I kind of wanted to get your opinion on an opinion that I have. I think moving forward, Bandai might adopt that philosophy especially if they plan on releasing blocks for a longer period of time. So basically my question to you is, do you think that moving forward we're going to see a lot of sets that are like, I don't want to say standalone sets, but when it comes to cracking packs, the ability to build decks within those archetypes that the set brings you is going to be a lot simpler with just the cards that are included in the set itself?
That is all right. So where I'm at with Ultimate Squad as a set, I think it adds a lot of really, really interesting archetypes that have a chance to continue to get support, which is, I think, a really, really nice sweet spot. So we were at a point at the start of the block with sets like Vermilion Bloodline where if you were drafting out of the box or if you were trying to build archetypes right out of the box, you needed to pull almost everything in 4-ofs, and you weren't getting a lot of generic stuff where, like, if you wanted to build a combination of 2 color archetypes or you wanted to build 2 colors worth of something in a deck, you were running into a lot of the same problems where colors became less identity based and more archetype based.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lot less good stuff. So I think where Ultimate Squad succeeds is you take yellow, for example. You have Dripku and you have, what is the other yellow archetype in this?
Piccolo.
And Piccolo. 2 really, really, really great archetypes that can continue to get support. You know, any 1-cost Unison is going to support Dripku, and any yellow and or green Namekian is going to support Piccolo. But if you wanted to build those decks straight out of the box, you have almost everything you need. Like, if you built Dripku with 4-ofs of 3 or 4 of the 1-cost Unisons, 4 of the 3-cost, you know, you grab the 4 1-cost Gohan, 4 3-cost Trunks, 4 3-cost Gohan, that's almost 50 cards.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that respect, it does a really good job, but I think building decks out of the box is something that, as the game has grown bigger and bigger with the bigger card pool, I think has gone has gone to the wayside, I think.
So you think that it's more of like a good stuff deck game as opposed to an archetype out of the box type game?
I think we've gotten a lot of staple cards in past sets that
Mm-hmm.
I think they want to keep alive. Like, if they didn't want Senzu Bean to exist, it wouldn't exist.
Right.
But I think that we have a lot of archetypes that take up more room in a deck. I'll say it like that.
Okay. So I'm okay with that. I mean, I think I don't think anymore, but I think at a certain point, I want to say maybe set 11, or maybe set 11 going into set 12, we had a nice balance of. Ooh, I just cracked that pitch. I'm sorry. We had a nice balance of good stuff decks and archetype based decks, and maybe I don't know if it was set 10 or set 11. What was it set that the Gotenks deck came out in? Was that 11?
Gotenks was 11, I think.
Yeah. So that format I feel like was that. I think there was good stuff decks, and then there was archetype based decks, because Gotenks was literally just. It was an archetype-based deck. It was very linear. It was like you did your Gokul on 1, you did your Unison on 2, you played your Grim Reaper on 3, and then wash, rinse, repeat. Which, it was good for a while until people started figuring it out, you know? And then they also had decks like Vegex, which had gotten like the Banhammer 2 or 3 times, but were still very successful. And those were like just good stuff decks. I mean, yes, you did have, you know, your little mini like archetype engine that you played like 12 to 16 cards, and then everything else was just kind of good black stuff. But I feel like with the recent sets, I'm kind of on the opposite fence from you. I think Bandai has gone more towards we're just going to give you everything out of the box to build it right away and lean into archetype-based stuff. I think there's still room for the good stuff decks, because, yes, there are a lot of powerful staple cards in the game. But I feel like now more than ever, you can still... Okay, so basically, I'm just trying to find the right wording here. Good stuff decks have always been very powerful, and archetype-specific decks have always had a tough time competing with those decks. But now, I think good stuff decks are very viable, but I also think archetype-specific decks are built in a way where you get rewarded for leaning into the archetype, and you can play a couple of tech choices here and there, so they still stand a good chance against these decks that are just playing a whole bunch of power cards.
Yeah, I think we've kind of, since set 12, I think is where, I agree, 11 into 12 is where they started leaning into that, and I don't think it's good or bad for the game specifically, because I think there are still good color decks where you look at something. and most black decks right now are taking the staple cards and sticking them in X Saiyan leader or Wormhole leader, or like that's how black's been for a while. And now that they've hit Gogeta Xeno, I think it opens it up to the better leaders in that color, such as like SSG Trunks is a great example of a really great generic leader. And I think they've been printing 1 or 2 of those per set. And I think that's a good way to, you know, keep it going, because I think you look at Red right now, I think is a good example of this, where you have U7 and GT completely dominating.
Right.
But, you know, I think the occasional, this is like one of my favorite leaders of all time, Set 7 Burnhan.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you could bring that deck to locals and throw a bunch of good, you know, good red cards in there and probably, you know, take a game or 2 off of some better decks. Now, are you going to win? Probably not. But I think having archetypes dominate is a great way to keep beginners' hopes alive, I think is the way I'd say it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all comes down to your building philosophy. I think there's a lot of people who like a very linear, structured method of building decks. I don't put myself in that category, but I'm not going to say that it's not easier to build decks that way. Like, it's very easy to build decks in a linear fashion with cards that you just have to play as part of the archetype. But I also like the challenge of trying to find the good combinations that work together and giving you those good stuff decks. But I know there are people that feel the same way. I know there are people that prefer good stuff decks. I know there are people that like archetype specific decks. So I think it really is just what it depends on what your cup of tea is. I think moving forward, though, we're going to see that trend in design philosophy where Bandai is going to probably print sets that lean heavily into archetypes, but they'll also print a couple of power cards here and there. Like, I think, I forget what set number it was. The set that brought us All Too Easy and Steadfast Assistance is the perfect example. It's like 15, right? Or 14? Yeah, so 14?
14 or 15?
Yeah, so whatever set brought us those 2 staples is the perfect example. Yeah, Spirit Boost. Because, again, they were trying to build up a certain mechanic. There was a lot of archetype specificity in that set, but they printed like a handful of power cards that were considered staples.
Steadfast.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm okay with them printing, you know, good archetypes and then a couple of staples. I prefer that as opposed to just printing a set full of staples, because then that's what drives up the prices and it drives up the scarcity, and it makes it a little difficult to get some of the cards, you know, that you might need to play certain strategies.
Yeah, I think Ultimate Squad's honestly a decent example of that. Like, I think each color I could probably name one card that's like the MVP card, like that can be played pretty generically. Like Red has the baby unison that just got snatched up, even though everyone's been talking about it for literally months. It was like the 3rd card they revealed, and everyone was like, "This is going to be one of the best red unisons," and everyone was like, "Nah, it's a 10K."
Yes.
Yeah, except it just pretty much carried Ritzy to another regional win. I don't know how he keeps winning regionals. It's like automatic, but
yeah.
I think, you know, yellow has, I think, the most generic card in that color this set was the Goku Final Sacrifice negate. I think that card is phenomenally underrated, and if you play yellow, you should probably pick up an SPR playset now.
That's the one that it's like a blocker. When he comes in, he negates and is a blocker?
No, so he negates, so he comes in for 1 if you have a unison out. So on play, Spirit Boost 1. Do Spirit Boost, he kills himself, and then he goes on to, if there is a 5 or less in rest mode, or he switches a card to rest mode, and then if it's a 5 or less, KO it, draw a card.
Nice.
So he sacks himself, is removal, replaces himself, and stops an attack. So if you negated like a leader swing and there was a 5 or less battle card that was going to probably hit you for more damage next turn, you negated that swing, rested the battle card, killed the battle card, and replaced the card in hand.
That card does a lot.
It's got a ton of utility, and it's gorgeous in both arts, which is awesome. but I think blue has that that cell, for example. While it's blue green. Blue green has a ton of options in the meta right now with Gamma 16 and 21. Or you can just build blue green. Like blue green Krillin is a leader that I think does blue green really really well because it just draws cards consistently, and then you can just kind of flood whatever archetype you want to run in there.
I just did blue green cell, and it wasn't that bad, to be honest.
It's right, and that's another leader that can handle a lot of different archetypes, and you can kind of just smush whatever you need in there. And I think cards like that I think it's an 8-drop or a 9-drop cell.
Yeah.
Are so good for the game, where you can kind of throw them in there, but they also get better if you're running them in an archetype.
Right.
I think that Goku card is phenomenal in an archetype. Another example in red, this set got a ton of great cards, is the 8-drop trio. It can go in any red unit under any red unison with 10k or more power, which is almost all of them.
Right.
So if you wanted to run that card, it'd be silly to run King Piccolo at all. Don't play that deck; it's dead. And if you're trying to keep it alive, go away. You can put that card under Piccolo Jr. You can put that card under Jiren. You can put that card under any red unison, and it's so interesting because it just comes out from under unison. I think cards like that are phenomenal for the game.
Yeah, I think a lot of flexibility is what's good with stuff like 100%. That. I also feel like Bandai is getting to the point where they're making these archetypes, and most of the stuff, the archetype is kind of constructed the same way. There's commons, uncommons, and rares, and then there's maybe one SR that you need for the archetype.
Yep.
So I like that because then it makes it easier to get things for the specific decks. You don't need to hunt down 3 or 4 SRs. You can just kind of build it up, and then you get your SR as your top end. I like that they're doing that. They didn't always do that.
No, they didn't. It's something they've gotten closer to lately.
Yeah. They definitely have decided to go that route, and I really appreciate that. Somebody who is more of a budget player, and I have to pick and choose what I'm going to play. Long gone are the days where I would just pick up cases and just have hundreds and hundreds of copies of cards just lying around. I got to be smart nowadays, but
yeah, man.
But I think it's also really nice for new players coming in, which is what I'm going to segue into now. New players coming into the game and having access to a fan favorite archetype where their boss monster is easily accessible is what's going to start driving newer players to come into the game. Obviously, the skill gap is going to be huge, and that's just something that is unavoidable at this point. Like we talked about last week, Dragon Ball rewards players who have been playing the game for a long time because you have that edge in matchup knowledge.
Yep.
And that's just something that you're never going to get away from, which is why I think they'd be okay with 2 different formats, one kind of rotation format and one standard format or open format, whatever you want to call it, because I think you're catering to both sides. But I also think that with moving into a new block, you're going to start seeing that resurgence, especially for new players, because I have a really big feeling that the Z-Leader block is going to introduce not only a new mechanic, but it's gonna be like a pivot point for where the game is at right now, where you'll be able to just jump on and start fresh.
Yeah, I think. Well, they announced. I think it's this set. I think it's the Z-Leader set that the 5 starter decks are coming out. There's one in each color.
Well, yeah, there's one for every. Yeah, there's one for every color that's not black. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not black because Bandai said black, you're going to be good for 3 formats, and you can go die in a hole again.
Yeah.
So they just don't know how to balance black as a color. It's so sad.
It's tough.
As someone who has all the black staples, it's they just don't know how to balance it as a color, and it's sad. But I think sets like that introduce starter decks from so many different sets and having reboots. I think one of those is a reboot Pan.
Yes.
Rebooting the Pan leader is a great way. That leader has support in a ton of different sets. It has an anniversary support card that from the first anniversary box. It has cards from the set 3, cards from set 13, cards from set probably 23 when it continues to get red Earthling and or Saiyan support. Like 15k red cards go in pan. Like, and I think leaders like that are great for the game that have legacy support and also can continue to get better with other sets worth of support.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. The other thing it's funny that you mentioned black. The other thing that I was talking about the other day with my buddy Enrique, is that when it comes to black as a color, black first came out at the end of set 2 before set 3. It was a little expansion for Overrealm. It wasn't, anything crazy. It was just black was kind of built as like that support color, like the color that, okay, you know what? Everyone's going to have access to this, and we're just going to give it to you as like a boost to your current existing deck. Like, everybody can run it. There's no restrictions to it, blase, blase, blah. And for a while, that's what black was. Black was an auxiliary support color that pretty much everybody squeezed in an Overrealm engine in their deck because it's it's great value. It's, either a free finisher or a free extender. There's a lot of different, versatility that went into the Overrealm mechanic. But set 10 rolls around. They want to go ahead and try and make black a standalone color, which I have no problem with. However, by doing that, you're kind of breaking the Overrealm mechanic. And by that, I mean, what I mean by that is they made black, they made black its own color where it could stand on its own 2 legs.
But its identity is free.
Correct.
And that's the issue.
Correct. Its identity is everything comes in for free and everything interacts with the warp, which is still very strong to this day. And I think that might have been a mistake instead of introducing a new color entirely. I think what they should have done was keep black as its auxiliary, like, support color that everybody has access to, and then go ahead and introduce a new color with a new gimmick so that you can essentially have 5 colors in the game. Because the reasoning for Bandai banning Fighting Against Fate and Secret Identity was kind of bogus to me. Like, their reasoning was that the cards are too generic and they are used in too... Well, okay, yeah, they're too generic because that's what Overrealm is. Overrealm is supposed to be an organic, generic extension to an already existing strategy. So you're just contradicting your design philosophy because you're too scared to say a card is too broken or we made his color too broken.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting to me. Like, I'm looking up a specific card right now, so I'm sorry for the pause.
No, you're good.
There are cards that create a ton of advantage, and then there are cards that fit really well within colors. An example of a black card like that is Haru Haru, and there was another card that came out. Like, Haru Haru said if your opponent's leader is green or yellow, and the other card said if your opponent's leader is blue or red.
Yeah, they're both the Majin twins.
Yes, the Majin twins. Thank you.
Yeah,
are great examples of black being splashed. But then you get a card like, I think this would have been a great generic black card. Demigra challenging a Demon God and Rovalu challenging a Demon God. When you so if your leader card is a black Trunk Xeno card, when a black battle card is played from your warp, this card gains Wormhole.
Okay.
I think introducing Wormhole generically would be a great way to balance black. And I know people are like, oh, well, Overrealm's already broken. But if you're introducing play from warp, almost all of the cards in Trunks that play from warp cost at least 1 energy.
Right.
So I don't know if you should go like if they were to make play from warp black's identity instead of Overrealm, like create a lot of these generic black cards or even non-generic black cards that play from warp for an energy cost, and then have cards that support that, but you have to play through paying energy. I think that balances the color in a whole new way and opens up so many different things. And you can go back and support things like Union Patara from Warp and Union Fusion from Warp, but you're making people pay energy instead of just supporting Black as like, you know, we're gonna make it suck for a few sets and then we're gonna release this mechanic that makes you draw a ton of cards because just you played the game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think I've always said this, like, from day one, right? Dragon Ball is a resource-based game. Anything that you make free or less expensive in a resource-based game, it's always going to be either broken or just very powerful. So something like Overrealm, something like, you know, the Fearless Fusion, and, you know, the Thwarting the Dark Empire, that stuff, that, you know, those are power cards that come in for very little to no energy, and there's not a lot of, like, there's not a lot of cost to it. It's like, oh, I just need to have 2 bodies in the warp, put them back in my drop area. That's going to facilitate my Overrealm anyway. Sure, yeah, I'll do this. So I think that you kind of have to be careful. Yeah, so you have to be careful on how much you make free, because if everything is free, then it's just, we're just playing Yu-Gi-Oh at that point. Right. So I think I've given Bandai, like, the benefit of the doubt for a lot of stuff that they've done. Some stuff that they've done recently has been questionable, but seeing Ultimate Squad and how they designed those cards and those archetypes, and, you know, going into a new block, I'm kind of optimistic. But I kind of feel like, and I don't know if I'm going to get a lot of shit for this in the comments, so this is kind of like a hot take. I feel like Z Leader is a potential, like, make or break set. And what I mean by that is if they can't rein it in, and if they can't solidify their identity as a game, then there's a possibility that you're going to isolate it to a specific crowd. So the problem that we have now, it's a good problem. It's definitely a first world problem. The problem that we have right now is Bandai has 2 very successful card games on their hands, and they're about to release a third, which is getting a lot of hype and is probably going to be a successful card game because there's a lot of fans of that IP, right, being One Piece. And reading and following and all, you know, just listening to people's opinions, One Piece has taken mechanics from both games.
Yep.
So what I mean by Dragon Ball isolating itself to a specific crowd is if you're not getting something from one game, then you're just going to move on to the next one. So if you're playing Dragon Ball because you like the mechanics, you like the energy system, you obviously enjoy the IP, you enjoy how the game is played in a certain way, but now you're not getting it because it's completely different from what you're used to, you're going to try to venture off into other things. What Dragon Ball has going for it that Digimon and One Piece either don't have right now, or maybe we'll get at some point. Dragon Ball, you draw a lot of cards. Like, just naturally, you draw a lot of cards in the game. You're going to see most of your pieces. The decks can be built, you know, with very odd card totals and still be very consistent just because of how quickly you cycle through your deck. Playing other games, you know, Digimon, Magic, you know, all these other games, they're not as consistent because they don't draw as much. So I think if you're gonna, like, characterize Dragon Ball and, like, write up the pros and the cons, I think one of the best attributes that the game has is the ability to draw cards. So I think that's what's gonna keep people vested, because no other game really does that. You know, Yu-Gi-Oh is a solitaire game. You kind of build your board, and then your opponent has to break it, and then that's pretty much it. Digimon is a resource-based game, but it's very like, okay, if you don't draw your pieces, you could just lose to variance, which is tough. It does make it a little more strategic, but, you know, that is the case. And, you know, just by watching videos and reading up on other, you know, things with One Piece, it kind of seems to be like it's not a game that's going to draw a lot of cards. So I think that they're okay, but I don't want them to, like, outspeed themselves. Like Dragon Ball now, what's up Hudson? Shout out to Hudson in chat. Dragon Ball now is a way faster game than it used to be.
Okay, so here's where I think we have very different points of view. So
Okay.
Dragon Ball is the only card game I've ever played.
Okay.
I collected trading cards when I was a kid. Of course, I bought my Yu-Gi-Oh packs at the comic store, and they were very obviously fake, and they came from a vending machine. And I had my fake Pokemon cards.
Nice.
I bought sports. Like I loved seeing like these shiny little pieces of cardboard, and then I'd throw them in a box and forget about them.
Sure.
So like, for me, I jumped into Dragon Ball because I loved the IP.
Mm-hmm.
And I've grown to really, really enjoy the mechanics. Like for me, it feels like I am taking part in a Dragon Ball fight when I play the game.
Right.
Which I think is like so unique. Like I see Digimon from the outside, and it's not an IP that interests me. Like I liked Digimon growing up, and I saw a lot of the Digivolve aspect of it, and it's cool. But I see the mechanics of Dragon Ball, and I don't see the parts that I enjoy in Digimon.
Okay.
I see the amount of interaction that Bandai has created in this card game is so cool. And they've continued to support the focus on interaction instead of the lack of interaction. Hurting decks like Invoker, somehow they haven't touched Sin, but focusing on punishing decks that don't interact.
That's a big somehow.
and rewarding the decks that do interact is something that it seems like they focused on, and I think that's the hallmark of this interaction. You're swinging, you're punching your opponent.
Yeah.
You're physically having to move your cards to deal damage and turn them and flip them upside down for energy, and then you interact with them in blue. Like Goku charges up his energy and then uses all of it at once. There are decks like the UI Sign engine is a great example of an engine that feels like Dragon Ball. You're going all the way up Goku's forms, from Super Saiyan to Super Saiyan God to Super Saiyan Blue to Ultra Instinct, and you're killing your opponent. And where Dragon Ball succeeds. And Gamma 1 and Gamma 2, I have a feeling, I haven't watched the movie yet, but I have a feeling in the movie they're probably going to have the ability to have this untapped resource in their energy, and that's what the leader does. The leader has 3 energy open at the start of their opponent's turn. They have this seemingly unlimited resource. I think stuff like that is where Dragon Ball continues to keep me invested and always wanting to build new decks. So I think the Saga locked archetypes, Saga locked is the wrong way to say it, but when you're able to play out your favorite moments from the show and from the movies, I think that's where they're going to hold on to their audience.
Yeah, I actually wish that they would do that more. We have...
I think Z-Fighters is a great example of that. The yellow Dripku deck?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they would... I wish that they would do that more because, like you said, era locked. There are eras, ERA. There are eras on cards. There's an era, this card is from this era. We have yet to even, utilize that. That is just something that's there, as a description on the card. So I wish that they would do that more. I wish that they would... I mean, for the most part, they do a good job. They usually take, one specific color, and they'll do a good guy and a bad guy from a specific moment in the anime or a specific movie or whatnot. Black has become the Dragon Ball Heroes color. So that's just pretty much just all what if scenarios, which is fine. That's fine. That's really cool seeing stuff like that. But I wish they would do that for all the time. What set was it?
Which archetype are you thinking of?
So set 10, right? I feel like set 10 was all over the place. Because yellow, you got Sin Shenron and GT Gotenks. But GT Gotenks, does he ever even fight Sin Shenron?
So
it felt a little disconnected.
That's fair. That's a fair point. And I think Ultimate Squad, I like to come back to Ultimate Squad, is like a great example of decks feeling like the character that you're playing.
Yes.
Like, for example, I stick on yellow because it's a great example in this set of archetypes that feel like you're actually doing it. Like the Z Fighter archetype ending with this big Gohan unison that empowers itself using the keyword empower.
See what you did there.
Supporting the archetype, going off of, oh man, Yamcha died, now the Vegeta unison comes out. Vegeta quote unquote died, so the Piccolo unison comes out, and then the Gohan unison comes out using the markers, the energy from his fallen comrades to attack through the, like, that's the coolest shit in the world.
Yeah.
Like, and then like Piccolo is absorbing these Kami cards and you're throwing them underneath each other, and the more cards that are underneath, the different types of effects. Like Blue Boo from forever ago is another great example of this. Like how you used to be able to like throw all these different colored Boo cards underneath.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And you would gain the effects. Like stuff like that is so fun to me. Like I think that's a general like I think people enjoy stuff like that where you can feel like you're the character. Like that's why like I really enjoy Red UI is a deck that I think does it really well and is really good. GT is another one. You're putting all these Saiyans under the spaceship, and then you're playing them from inside the spaceship. Like, that's so neat. But it's also broken.
Yeah.
So if they can balance the game and make these archetypes fun, that's where I think they're going to really hold on to a lot of the audience.
Yeah, I think they've always done a really good job of the flavor. Like, the flavor has always been really nice. Rogue GT Trio and how it stuffs 30,000 Saiyans inside of a spaceship. Yeah, I mean it's the clown card deck like we talked about, right? Like that's what GT does. But Dragon Ball has always been really good with flavor. Like even back like in early like set 2, set 3, they had a lewd card that would union absorb a pan and go into its other form, which is what happened in GT. Now GT gets shit on. I love GT, don't get me wrong. It gets shit on a lot by like the Dragon Ball like purists or whatever, but it does exist. So I mean they've always done a really good job of having that flavor and having that like that payoff like you said. So yeah, I mean you're right. I mean I'm looking at it very like I'm just looking at it very narrowly, just for people who are coming in and just trying to pick up the game from nothing. You know, a lot of the times people are attracted to games because of the IP, but they stay for the mechanics. Now,
and that's where I'm at.
Yeah, and that's fine. You're absolutely right about that. Like you're not wrong at all. Dragon Ball has close to perfect mechanics. Like if the granddaddy of them all is Magic the Gathering, Dragon Ball does it better because you can't really get mana locked in Dragon Ball because every card could be used as a charge card. Every card could be used as energy. So Bandai has already solved the one big problem that Wizards has, is that not every card in Magic can be used as a land to generate mana in a resource-based game. So they've already cracked the code on that. So their mechanics are close to perfect, if not already perfect. Interaction is something that people always want. They want to be able to do stuff. They want to be able to kind of slow their opponent down if they have, you know, that option to do that. That's always been like Pokemon's biggest criticism, is that there's no interaction. You kind of just, okay, your turn, my turn, and then see who wins. So they've kind of cracked the code on that. And I love them for doing that. I love them for really, you know, digging their heels in and staying true to what everybody loves about Dragon Ball. And that's honestly, it's the nostalgia at this point, but you know, it's not going anywhere. I'm just of the opinion that the game is going to live or die depending on how many new players that you can introduce to the game. And it's Dragon Ball's biggest competition is going to be itself, because there's so many options, which is great. I mean, living in a world where you can you have so many options on what games you want to play is awesome. Again, these are first world problems, but if the game is not, how do I word this? If the game is to a point where it's not, and we've had these discussions before in our Facebook chats, shout out to the Sensu Bros, Sensu Bean Cartel in Facebook. We've had these conversations where we're all in agreement that Dragon Ball is not the most, not appealing, but it's not the most like new player friendly game. Because like I said, Dragon Ball has always been a game that rewards players who have invested their time and have kept up and have played the game for a long period of time. You can't just go sit down and play Dragon Ball and think you're going to do well. I just don't think that happens. They've done a good job of making ultimate decks, and they've done a good job of making starter decks that are easily accessible where you can have a good jumping on point. But the game itself is not the easiest to teach somebody because there's a lot of different mechanics, there's a lot of different timings, there's a lot of different rulings, there's a lot of stuff that you just have to know. And that can turn off some people. So I hope that Z Leader, not that I want them to water down the game, because I don't, because I love the challenge aspect behind it. I love having to think. I just hope that it's as attractive to new players as it is to current players.
So I shout out to Hudson with that point with the combo step is like another great, unique part of the game. I think where Dragon Ball succeeds, and I think this is another I think I'm seeing it from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And the more the game grows, the more I see other people that played a bunch of card games and then there's I only play this card game and I haven't played other ones. Mm-hmm. So something that I've seen is it's sort of like a fighting game where it's easy. For me, I would teach someone. Instead of the whole game in itself, I would give someone an archetype. I think I keep coming back to the Yellow Z Fighter deck.
Sure.
I think it's a great entry point.
It is.
A, because the majority of the cards are in the set. And B, it's an archetype that's easy to learn, hard to master. Mm-hmm. You look at that's how I see fighting games. Dragon Ball Fighter Z is so easy to learn because it has its auto combos, mm-hmm. where you look at you can just swing and you can just put a bunch of cards on the board and keep turning them sideways. Mm-hmm. But you can also learn to abuse the empower mechanic, where you can pay an energy and you're empowering and then I empowered and I did it off my leader. And I put it into play in rest mode when I could have gotten more value by doing it by paying energy. Right. And now I get to draw and I get to swing with it. So that's that easy to learn, hard to master aspect.
Sure.
That I think almost every deck in the game has. I think this game has always had this point where you can learn the format, and if you learn the format and you're good at your deck, you're going to get rewarded.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, that's what we were talking about last week, where it comes down to matchup knowledge. I mean, it's a very pilot dependent game. Shout out to Jordan Markle. He just took Zamasu Wish he just took it to a second place finish, and he wasn't trying to do anything cheeky. He was playing the archetype. So it really does come down to knowing what your opponent is trying to do while also trying to do what you want to do to further your game state. I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer. I'm not trying to look at the glass half empty. I just want to make sure that I've invested a lot in the game. I enjoy playing the game. I don't mean invest money. I mean just invest time and effort or whatever. And I really do enjoy playing the game, and I just hope that it doesn't go anywhere. I don't think it will, especially with the announcement that Dragon Ball Super is going to continue its manga to infinity and beyond, which is great. So I just hope that I don't want it to become a niche game. That's my biggest fear. I remember the days where you used to get 300, 400, 500 man tournaments, when we had multiple TOs and when there was a bigger competitive season. I remember those days. So I'm kind of looking, I'm looking through what's the expression? I'm looking through shit-stained goggles. I think that's the expression. I could be wrong. I'm looking through shit-stained goggles, and I'm like reliving the glory days, and it has the game itself.
Graduation goggles.
There you go. Okay, yeah, that's the PG version. I'm looking at it from what the game was to what it is now, and I know that a lot of it has to do with the pandemic and the lack of in real life events, because as much as the online events are available, Dragon Ball is just played better in person, in my opinion. I mean, any game I think is better in person, but I think specifically Dragon Ball, because of all the interaction, you have to kind of be there. So, you know, if you're playing solitaire, yeah, you could do that online, no problem. So I think that, like I said before, like, because there's so many options right now, I'm just worried I don't want it to become a niche game where we get, you know, 28-man regionals, and that's like the norm, you know?
So I think, like, bringing that point about the regional in, I think it was Texas, or was it like one of the conventions had like 3 or 4 Origins. It was.
Yeah.
That just happened. Had 4 regionals. I think events like that are great, and then you look at, like, I think Otakon is going to be huge.
Mm-hmm.
Gen Con is going to be huge.
Yes.
Where, like, I think we have these events so much more often because I think there are more smaller events than bigger events, and I think that's something that we've always had. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I've always seen the small amount of big events and the large amount of small events.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing that, like, I think this game has a real chance at these convention events to blow up. Like, I think these events are the biggest chance that the game has to really grow its audience on a large scale at once.
Yeah, I mean, having your game in a convention is also kind of like a check for the win. Yeah, okay. Having your game in a convention, I think that's like a double-edged sword, though, because I think putting your tournament behind a convention and then having to buy not only the entry for the tournament, but it sucks. Like, that's just not a good. That's not a good model. Like, I think they need to change that. But again, I know that they're still recovering from, you know, the COVID. So it's like, I get both sides. I just feel like they need to start moving. Like, the pieces need to start moving, and it can't just be all on PPG's shoulders. Like, there needs to be another TO that like, there has to be another TO out there that wants to pick up DBS. Like, I know Top Cut used to do it. They don't do it anymore. I think they might have just did one. I don't even know. Like, that's the thing, is, like, I don't even know. I know PPG does a majority of everything on the East Coast, and Core TCG does a majority of everything on the West Coast, but then there's nothing in between. So, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm going to still play the game. Obviously, I'm going to still, you know, enjoy it. I just hope that newer players start to see that it's also a good experience and a fun game to play, and just take that, you know, like, jump in with both feet and just kind of get acclimated. But at the same time, I think it's our responsibility as current players to make sure that we encourage that.
Oh, for sure.
Like I think a lot of the time our competitiveness gets in the way, and we don't really allow ourselves to. I'm not saying we as in, like, individually. I'm saying we as a whole. I'm not trying to single anybody out. Believe me, I'm not. I think the competitiveness kind of takes over sometimes, and you kind of, not that you kind of tell God, not that you, like, will tell somebody, like, oh, you know, this is the big kids table, you can't sit here. Like, that's not the mentality that people have. I just think it gets forgotten sometimes. Like, okay, listen, you know, we have to put it upon ourselves, especially locally, to try to encourage as many players to come in as possible.
Yeah, I think I like that we're kind of doing the whole beginner talk. Like, I think the starter decks, and I like that I came back to this. I think these starter decks for this next block, these 4 or 5 that we're getting, is the best starting point we've had since Starter Coup. Truthfully, like I think we have one in every color, and I made this prediction before you took your hiatus that these 4 starter decks are going to have all 4 free counterplays and all 4 of whatever the best unison at the time is going to be, and they're going to have this great jumping off point. And I also think that the history of Goku and Vegeta collections are another great
product. Oh my god, those are great.
Those are, I think, an example of a near perfect product.
Yes, so good.
Like straight up, like you have staples in almost every color in both. Not Vegeta a lot more than Goku, but
yeah, hell yeah.
In almost every color.
Goku got the shaft a little bit, man. He got the shaft.
He kind of did, but that's the first time in this game.
Yeah, this is true. Okay. This is so true.
But you look at like there are staple cards in almost every color. You get 3 beautiful gold foils and some meta leaders like SS4 Vegeta being in there.
Yep.
And a bunch of cards for its archetype.
Yep.
Like Ready to Rumble and the 6-drop SR, and you know, like it's got, I think Goku's Kamehameha is in the Goku side. So like you pick up a couple of each, you've got a good part of the way to building SS4 Vegeta. And another staple card, Beerus Destroys for that deck, just came out. So that's a way to buy a newer set. And like, hey, you buy a couple of packs, maybe you pull a couple Beerus Destroys because it's a common, but it's also a foil common, and it's also an SPR. So maybe you buy a box of Realm of the Gods, and you're like, wow, I really hope I can pull some Beerus. And you pull a couple of commons, and you pull an SPR Beerus Destroys. Like that's like the best case scenario. You bought one copy of the Vegeta history pack, one copy of the Goku one, and one box, and you pulled everything you need. But like, I think these starter decks are where it really is going to attract newer players, because you're going to see fan favorite characters like Pan. I'm sure we'll get like a Jiren or a Topo type of one. I'm sure there'll be a Goku one because we play the Goku card game.
Yeah,
I'm sure there'll be another super character. Maybe we get, God willing, a Moro starter deck. I think that would be so cool.
That would be insane. Yeah.
Like we have a great priest archetype. Is it garbage? Yes. But
yeah,
we have so many different characters playable in this game right now. And I think seeing those starter decks be varied characters and not just Goku in Super Saiyan God and Goku in Super Saiyan and Goku in Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan.
Right.
I think would be really, really good for the game, and I can't wait to see those. Those are the reveals that I'm the most excited to see in the near future.
I can't wait for them to start. Yeah, I can't. I can't wait for them to start revealing starter decks. I can't wait for them to start revealing the next stuff. Like even to get a trailer on it. I think somewhere I read, or maybe I heard it from somewhere in passing, that Pan is definitely going to be the red reboot.
And then it's the image.
And then I thought that set 10 Trunks, Blue Trunks, was gonna get the blue one, and I think that Ape Kid Goku was gonna get the yellow one. That's what I think was conversed about, but we could be totally off. I just threw a no hitter.
So here, TGG. So here's the green one. I cannot tell for the life of me what that was like. But the description from a 4 starter sets available at the same time to support a new series. A pre-built Saiyan themed starter deck. Oh, they confirmed the characters.
Oh, nice.
For 4 colors from different eras. Red, Pan for GT. Blue, Trunks, probably going to be Super.
Yeah.
Green, Son Goku, could be from anything. We've got a green Goku leader from literally every era.
Yeah.
And yellow Gotenks, available at the same time. Includes reboot popular leaders and new card type, the Z Leader. A new card type Z Leader makes its popular leaders deck even stronger. It will be attractive not only to new players but also to old players, compatible with the new booster. And this is the big one, I think, includes 2 SRs. We haven't seen that since like 7.
Oh yeah.
Have a starter deck have new set SRs.
That is new. Huge. Yeah, look at that. The
leader card and the Z Leader card have same silver foil and gold stamp as the booster set SR. In addition, they come with different illustrations from the booster, making them highly valuable. Great product. Phenomenal description. If that's true, this is exactly what I was talking about. Where like we're seeing these cards come out, and you're gonna get a different printing in the starter deck, just like we kind of saw in set 1 with it was like one hit destruction. Vegeta was in there,
Right.
Like there were a couple of cards that were in the starter deck that were also in the set, but like I think seeing 2 SRs from the set in the starter deck.
Yeah, that's pretty hot. I like that.
And that probably means we're going to see support cards for those starter decks in the set. Sort of like how they said they were going to support Vegex and then they banned it 4 times.
Yeah.
But like I think that when it comes down to it, I would die on the hill that these starter decks are a phenomenal point for the game, and seeing 4 of them at the same time in each of the 4 main colors, and they'll just let black rot for another set or 2. That's okay. Like maybe they'll listen to me and make black balanced, but probably not. But that's okay.
Yeah, we're allowed to have opinions.
Right, exactly. I can dream that black will be balanced one day.
Maybe. Last thing before we get on out of here. I feel like we have this discussion like at least once a month, but I can't help myself because I saw somebody post about it today in the Facebook group. Swift Retaliation Cooler.
Oh god.
Where do we sit with this boy?
Oh god.
Where do we sit with this boy?
Yellow isn't doing anything broken anymore since they really battered Icarus. Yellow is a good color in the format, but I mean, if Yellow Trunks is really going to spend 3 energy for Cooler, like I think Sin is really the only deck that can abuse it, but nobody's playing it for some reason. A shout out to Graham, he'll probably show up to the edge with Sin fully built now that I'm saying this.
Yeah.
And, you know, he'll run all 4 copies of Retaliation Cooler.
Yeah, because he is the sweatiest boy.
Oh, the sweatiest.
Yeah.
But I think that I think it's fine right now. I saw one of the complaints was like every color doesn't have a counter. I'm like, technically they do. Like Red's got this really cute one that I really like in the sideboard. I know. Shout out to Joey. I saw this in his video too. Was the King Vegeta card, Hidden Ambitions?
Yeah.
That for 1 energy can counter negate the counter skill of a card that had a cost of 1 that was free. Cough D-Magic, cough Dimension.
Yeah, so it's all the sparking negate counters.
Yeah, and the free Unison ones. So
yeah.
You know, Wolf Fang is one that nobody plays, but that it could stop if it gets good. Like stuff like that, I think is great. But the 4 different counters are on massively different levels. So do I think Cooler needs to be banned? I think it needed to be banned like 2 ban lists ago. I think it's an Orochi situation.
Yeah.
Where it's probably going to get hit retroactively instead of proactively. Which is fine. You know, I don't play Yellow. It doesn't bother me. I'm sure Yellow players will be upset about it for a little while, and then they'll move on to playing 4 copies of Trillis all too easy again, and they'll be fine.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, dude, like cards like that are just super old and still like hanging around. They should just go. Like, shout out to Brian. Yo, what's up, Brian? They should just go. Like, get rid of Bean, get rid of Champa, get rid of Cooler, like, get rid of all these old ass cards that are still meta relevant. Like, just get rid of them. Like, there's no reason that a set 1 card should still be probably the best card in the game. Like, there's there's no reason Senzu Bean should still be as good as it is. Like, there's just no reason for it.
Are we jumping back on the hashtag ban Champa train?
I mean, I will never till it gets banned. I will never not.
Oh, God.
I will never not. It's the show 22, Gary. It's the show 22. Is it 22 or 21? What year are we in? It's the show 22. It's 22, bro.
Dang, have the graphics really not changed that
No,
much?
they have changed, bro. I think he's just trashing my team. Is what he's.
I think he probably is.
Yeah, Brian. Brian brings a good point. They shouldn't be power crept, which is what kind of keeps them around, I guess, because you know they get rid of Champa. Everyone's just gonna use Supreme Kai. It's the same. It's the same. Yeah.
Champa and Kai, and they'll make a triple strike version
or something. Yeah, something like that.
Imagine a 1. Well, they're not gonna make a 1 cost triple. I say that now, but no, I think having old cards have support is great, like old leaders. I'm not for banning Senzu Bean. I think Senzu Bean is fine.
I mean, yeah, Senzu Bean is fine.
I think cards like, set 1 Broly is a card that's gotten a bunch of support, and it's still good-ish. I think if it showed up at an event and a really good player was playing it,
No,
not
stop.
that, people are playing. It's
Stop.
decks like that should continue to get support. I don't think set 1 cards should be staples, but we have cards like Senzu Bean that was a great card for a long time, and it's still a great card. But then again, blue exists with this turn 2 kill meme deck, and that's just about it. You know what I mean?
Bro, let me get a Senzu Bean for every color then. Just do it.
A 2 energy reset for every color?
Every color. Why not?
Red would be unbeatable right now.
Okay,
imagine
fine. Just let them do it.
I'm going to pay 1 for my Android 17, and then I'm going to bean and pay 1 for a Frieza, and then I'm going to bean again, and then pay 2 for a Vegeta for the Universe of Survival, and then I'm going to bean 2 more times, and then play Ultra Mastery on 4 energy.
Yeah, do it. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's going to take something like that to happen for people to realize how busted certain cards are. Like
I think that's a fair point.
Like the Swift Retaliation Cooler thing, it's not that Swift Retaliation Cooler is the best counter in the game, because it's probably not. On paper, Golden 8 Baby it probably is.
With Baby.
Yeah.
I'd say it's tied because like Baby requires setup to be free, but Cooler is just 3 energy in yellow.
That's the thing, is the efficiency. We talked about it earlier. We're talking about a resource-based game where things are super cheap, and then Cooler comes down on your kill turn. Always. Like, it's your kill turn, and it draws you 9 times out of 10 is going to draw you 2 cards. So it not only replaces itself, it nets you 1. So it's a +1 that says your opponent loses. Like, that's what Cooler is. It's a +1 that says your opponent loses the game. So I think it's time, man. Hang it up, dude.
I'm not against it, but I'm also not like shouting from the rooftops for it to be.
Oh yeah, I'm not losing sleep over it.
1 drop. But
yeah.
I have a vendetta against Sin. For any new listeners, you guys will come to find that through every single episode. I'll probably shout for at least one part of Sin to be hit, because it survived so many ban lists and it doesn't play the game.
Yeah, word.
I think set 1 cards. Just play new cards, guys.
Yeah, but that's the thing, Matt, is that there's no equivalent to Senzu Bean. Senzu Bean is a one-of-a-kind card. Like, there's nothing that does what Senzu Bean does.
Okay, you know what? I'll raise you a point. Resetting old cards, not necessarily power creeping them in every respect, but giving us newer versions of them. Realm of the Gods comparable to the IARs.
But dude,
example.
But they do that. They reprint Senzu Bean like every other set.
Well, that's because people won't stop playing it. I think they've given up at that point. I think they've seen that like nobody's gonna stop playing Senzu Bean, so they're just gonna keep printing it.
I don't know, man.
It didn't get a print in the history collections.
It should have. I think it did, didn't it?
No,
Corrin's Tower. Yeah.
The Red Bean did.
Yeah, I like cards like that.
I love Corrin Tower Secret Medicine. Great sideboard card.
Yeah, it's such a great card, but this sees no play. Whatever.
Oh man, I know you like your yellow decks. Poutine's on the board, and you think you have a red deck shot. 1 copy's all it takes.
Yeah, man. Drop that Corrin's Tower on me, bro. Go ahead, do it.
I love that card.
Just do it,
Listen,
bro.
I will never live down my worst defeat in the history of Dragon Ball Super card game, losing to Set 2 Zamasu.
Bro, I'm telling you, man, that was the sauce. Nobody was ready for that, bro.
That was like your 4th or 5th time back from that long hiatus, and I was not ready.
Bro, I'm telling you, bro, there's some sauce, bro. And that was not
Gogeta Xeno.
Yeah.
Set 2 Zamasu.
That's right.
Handily.
That's right, man.
Granted, it was
no worries.
But
yeah,
it wasn't even close.
No worries.
Stomped.
Yeah, that was fun. I like doing stuff like that.
That's a great.
No, I think I don't know if you were there for that one, but the best was when I took set 1 Gohan, like the 6 energy board wipe. That was so much fun too. That was so good. All right, man. Well, listen, I think we've talked enough. I want to shout everybody out in the chat. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for commenting. For those of you who are still watching, if you guys ever want to ask questions, I mean, obviously this is a live conversation. So we try to get to as many comments as possible. If you ever have any topics of conversation that you want to specifically us talk about, let us know. If you have a PlayStation or a PlayStation or whatever, and you want to join in the chat, just feel free to just join in the chat. I think it's a public chat. It's not private or anything like that. Just don't
have any PlayStation friends.
Yeah, I just don't have friends, so it's fine. I want to be your friend, so be my friend, and I'll be your friend, and then we'll just talk and we'll have fun doing it. So we'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date with everything No Counters, No Combos. We really do appreciate the support, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Be there or be squared.